it's kind of a red flag. So although you get immediate results, it can come back and bite you in the long run.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I'm Calvin Shropshire, your host today, broker and owner of eXp Realty LLC, the Premier Group. Today, we have a special guest with us. We have Cassie Sparks with Lead Your Financials, who's going to be going over all things credit, helping us understand why credit is so important, especially in today's society, and giving us just a good overview of what we need to know so we can make sure our credit stays good, make sure we're able to go out and purchase stuff, and make sure we get those loans if we need them. So, Cassie, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me today. So again, I am Cassie Sparks, and I am with Lead Your Financials, and we are a consumer credit restoration company that's based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Awesome. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure you get a lot of questions about credit, right? So I got my first question for you is, what is credit?
So that's a great question. So the basic foundation of credit is the ability to borrow money up front with the promise to repay it. And that can be used to purchase goods or services such as a house or a car, or even with a credit card. So you can use it to kind of individualize some other goods or products that you may want. But of course, it's your worthiness to be able to repay what you have borrowed from that lender.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I know the credit system, it's interesting because even my own personal experience, like, when we were buying our new house, it's funny, I paid a car off and that dropped my credit by 20 something points. And it was just like, why was I penalized for that? So it gets, credit is always just, it's so confusing sometimes to understand the algorithm and how it works. So if someone wanted to go and apply for credit, like, how does that impact their credit scores? Like, what type of things help and what type of things hurt a person when they're trying to affect their, get credit, I guess?
So depending on what that person is trying to obtain. So in the case of trying to purchase a car, going to the dealership, let's just say if you're going to Mountain View Ford, going to a major dealership, that's going to impact your credit. Usually that dealership, they're going to do what we call kind of a blast call, where they're sending your information to multiple lenders simultaneously to see what can be, to get you the best interest rate on that particular car loan. And again, depending on how many that they send it to, generally, any of those inquiries or any of those hard pulls, it's supposed to only impact your score 3 to 5 points. So what a lot of consumers don't know is when you go to that dealership, it also depends on if they are going to obtain the credit from any word with the name financial in it, such as Capital One Auto Financing. That is viewed as a completely separate inquiry as opposed to going to Tennessee Valley Credit Union or as opposed to going through to Santander. So it also depends on what that institution is. So saying that because we do have clients where they have seen their score drop 20 to 30 points after going to a dealership. But again, it depends on what dealership, where their finance company, or where they've sent your reports to in order to try to obtain credit. But generally, the general rule of thumb is it only supposed to count as one inquiry, especially if you are car shopping less than 30 days. So in the opposite side of that, say for instance, if you're mortgage shopping, so that window is smaller. So it's 10 to 14 days. And again, it's 3 to 5 points. A lot of people think that it's going to significantly impact their score when they are in the process of mortgage shopping. So kind of the same concept of when you're car shopping, you want to do that within that specified window. So for cars, it's 30 days. For home loans or for mortgages, it's 10 to 14 days.
Interesting. So it's recommended if you're pulling or if you're shopping around for a mortgage or a vehicle, go ahead and just shop around as much as you can within that first week, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So it's condensed into one inquiry. So you will not have a huge impact on your score. And one of the things that you brought up is when you paid your car off, that your score dropped. And the reason is that account is reported as closed. So it's no longer active. So a lot of consumers, so we prepare them for that. If you're in the process of paying off any type of installment loan, you're going to have a decrease in your score after that account is closed. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you're in the process of purchasing a house, we do not recommend that you close anything off on your account until after you have closed on that house, because we don't want that to impact your score while you're in that home buying process.
Interesting. Okay. So what would you consider like healthy trade lines, I guess, for your credit? Like what helps your credit jump up?
So having so your credit basically is composed of 5 categories. So making sure that those 5 categories are your payment history, your credit utilization, the age of your accounts, or how long your accounts, the time it's been in your credit profile, having a good mixture of credit, and then also how many times have you applied for new credit. So to kind of have what we call a good healthy credit pie, we want that consumer to have at least 2 to 3 installment loans and 2 to 3 credit cards. So we do have clients that have a 760 or they have a 720. They have a high 700 score, but they're still getting denied for a mortgage loan or for a car loan. So we don't necessarily focus on the score. We want to look at the actual credit report, because you can have too many credit cards. You can have too many open loans. So we want to look at that report to make sure that you have not overextended yourself in the form of credit.
Interesting. So do the credit cards have a higher impact than the installment loans?
Not necessarily. So what a lot of clients miss out on is because your credit utilization, that accounts for about 30% of your score. If you do not have a credit card at all, you're missing out on that entire category. So you're missing out on the opportunity to gain any points in that category. Not only that, if you have a credit card, but you've overused the credit card, or you've used more than 30% of the available credit, then you're minimizing yourself in the amount of points that you can gain in that category. So we want to make sure that your kind of like your debt to income ratio, we want to make sure that your credit card balance is appropriate for the usage, depending on how much of your balance that you have available, or how much available credit that you have. So we don't want you to be using 90% of your credit card, because we want to make sure that credit card is not being used as another source of income. So that's kind of where some of our clients, they overuse the credit card, are not really quite sure on how to properly use a credit card. So that's some of the things that we teach while they're in our program, is giving them those educational tips.
I like that. Okay. That's good information. So tell us a little bit about the services you offer.
So we do credit restoration in addition to education. So basically it is consumer credit repair. So we're looking at the client's report, we're scrutinizing the report, looking at for any derogatory items. So what we also do and how we dispute those items, we use what we call factual-based disputing or compliance-based disputing. We do not do or participate in credit sweep. And so that's important for consumers to know, because there is a difference with doing a credit sweep. It's kind of a red flag. So although you get immediate results, it can come back and bite you in the long run. So that's basically where you take on a new credit profile number, or basically a new Social Security number. And that would be beneficial only to clients that are in a case of like a witness protection program, where their identity has to be concealed. But for the general public, that is not that's not an ethical practice. So we do not participate in that at all. But so what we do, of course, with doing the credit restoration, we want to make sure that we are getting the client's profile in a healthy credit state, making sure that they have the adequate amount of trade lines on their credit profile, making sure that they actually have healthy credit. Because a lot of people think that if you get rid of all of the collections and get rid of all of the derogatory items, that your credit should be in the 700s or 800s. And that's not necessarily true if you don't have anything healthy reporting. So we want to make sure that we have healthy accounts that are reporting on your credit report, and teaching those clients how to maintain their healthy credit going forward.
Now, I know in some cases I've heard, just because, we, as many houses as we sell, we get to see all types of different credit profiles and things like that. But I've heard in some cases, it's not good to pay off collection accounts or get rid of those. It's best to leave them on there. Is that true, or?
So, and again, that is a case by case basis because it also depends how long that collection has been lying on your account. So if it's a collection that's been on your account for 5 or 6 years and it's nearing the end of the statute of limitations, it may be an account that may be best to leave on there until after you've closed on your house. And especially in the case, either you want it removed completely, but what you don't want to do is pay that collection off in hopes of that it will increase your score. Because a lot of times, if that collection has been on your account for 5 or 6 years and you go into some type of payment arrangement or settlement with it, it then updates to your credit report, which basically generates new activity, which does drop your score. So that's probably why you heard not to pay that collection off while you're in that home buying process. But really, it's, don't pay on the collection until, for one, of course, you validated that that debt is in fact your debt, and go through some of those other proper steps before you actually pay that collection off. So a lot of clients that we get, they have just paid collections off, and it was their interpretation that the collection would be removed. But if that's not an agreement that you have already with that debt collection agency, you cannot make that assumption. So we do want to, we educate clients on that and how the collection process works. And especially with some of the new laws that have passed. So as of July 1st of 2022, if you have a paid medical collection, it can no longer appear on your credit report. And so one of the other exciting things this year that will, I believe, take place in July, that if you have a medical collection that's less than $500, it cannot be placed on your credit report. So that's helpful, especially while we were in the COVID pandemic and a lot of people acquired additional medical debt, or just with life happening in general, they've acquired additional medical debt. And if the collection is less than $500, it cannot be placed on your credit report. It doesn't mean you're not responsible for it. It just means that it cannot be reported to the credit bureaus.
Okay. It's so funny. Again, I've been doing this for so long, but it's amazing how much I learned just from these interviews. This is insane. I'm curious, how does your services help someone who maybe just been through bankruptcy, or maybe filed a Chapter 7 or Chapter 13? How does that impact them?
So what we do, we want to scrutinize the report because we want to make sure that the trade lines that were supposed to be included in Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 were in fact included in whatever designated bankruptcy that they filed. And also depending on the length of time that has expired. So with anyone that is fresh out of Chapter 7 or fresh out of Chapter 13, we generally ask them to wait 6 months before they enroll in our program, just because it takes some time to file the adequate paperwork with the courthouse from their attorney or with the bankruptcy trustee. So we know with that time frame, we want them to basically kind of go ahead and do their due diligence before we enroll them into our program. But it helps them because not only that, we're able to give them educational pieces one-on-one, because what we do want to prevent is a future filing of bankruptcy. So even though, life happens, they may lose a job, their income may be reduced, or anything could happen as to why they had to file bankruptcy. But we want them to understand not only the impact on their credit score, but what it limits them to being able to do. Because you cannot buy a house while you're in that process for the most part. And you cannot, purchase a car for the most part while you're in that process. So you're kind of strapped. So we also let them know, a lot of people don't want to have those awkward conversations with their creditors. So we, encouraging them and teaching them how to communicate with their creditors and to be able to basically prevent filing bankruptcy in the future. And just basically teaching them how to communicate with their creditors if they find themselves in a bind. Because sometimes even with any type of loan, you can contact that creditor and try to work out some type of payment agreement on that loan, rather than just letting it, just ignoring it. So either way, we're trying to teach them how to prevent doing that for future, but we also work on removing that bankruptcy completely from their credit report.
Wow. Okay. Now, when you guys implement these services, how long does it typically take to get results?
So, great question. So, most of our clients, they start seeing results within the first 30 days. Generally, we have, depending on, of course, what we're targeting on their credit report, we start seeing those results in the first 30 days. Our average client stays in our program for about 6 months. Because it does take that back and forth, of course, with the credit bureaus, with the collection agencies, and with their original creditors. It takes 30 to 45 days to get those responses back. So, but our average client, they stay in our program for about 6 months. We do have clients that stay longer, depending upon the complexity of their credit report. If they have multiple public records, such as bankruptcies or any judgments or tax liens or anything like that, then they would stay in our program a little bit longer, depending on the complexity or the quantity that they have. But for the most part, most of our clients, they stay with us for 6 months.
Okay. Now I know you said you offer educational resources. Is this open to the public, or is it just primarily for clients, or like do you have any classes or anything that you offer to anyone who's just wanting to inquire about the services?
So this is right now, it's primarily available just to our clients. I do a lot of education to students, to our youth. So implementing myself in our middle schools and in high schools just to teach them about the basic concept of money and how credit works. Because most eighth graders, they may start getting a summer job. And not only that, teaching high schoolers about an authorized user and preparing themselves for college, letting them know how credit works and how that impacts how they can monitor their credit, getting the free annual credit report and how they can, to be able to look over it. Because I know when I was their age, that was Greek to me. No one showed me how to do that. So either way, definitely teach that a lot to our high school juniors and seniors as they are transitioning and preparing to transition to the real world in whatever facet that may be. If it's college or going to a trade school or just going to work right after school, trying to equip them with the basic understanding of credit and how it works. We will be adding additional resources that will be available, to the public or anyone that's wanting just some one-on-one credit education. So we are adding those. We'll be adding some additional products throughout this year.
Okay. First of all, I want to commend you for teaching that to the youth, because I can tell you it is not taught at all by anyone else. I surround myself with some of the smartest people, and I will tell you, most people, like, a lot of them don't know what a money order is, or how to balance a checkbook. Of course, most things are done with a check card or things like that. But understanding how finances work and how credit works. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
I would honestly, especially after doing this with you, I would love to put something together like an event or something like that, just for you to be able to teach. We've got the space for it, but to have people, live bodies, come in and just learn from you, because I think this is very helpful. And I think this is very beneficial for anybody. I don't care what stage of life you're in. I think this could be very helpful for anyone. So if you're open to that, I'd love to put something together.
Of course. Yes, of course. I'd love to, either way, to be able just to teach about it and be able to inform people. And everything is not about a profit, because I feel like if I can empower someone with education, that's going to be the most powerful resource and tool that they'll have going forward. So either way, just being able to equip them with what they need in order to kind of make those informed decisions going forward. But I would love to do that. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Okay, perfect. What's one thing you think we need to know that we haven't discussed in this at all? Like something just off the top of your mind?
Well, just being able to educate our consumers more about monitoring their credit. So a lot of people don't look at their credit until it's time to use it. So even though Credit Karma is great, Credit Sesame, all those websites, they're great. They're good for educational stuff. It doesn't give you the actual. It doesn't give you your report. No. And also teaching people that there's a difference between not just between how credited, there's a difference in algorithms. So what you see on Credit Karma is not going to be your actual mortgage score. You cannot get your mortgage score from anyone other than a lender. I'm sorry.
Can you say that one more time, please? I get another person that comes up to me and says, "I check my credit on Credit Karma."
And it's not the same. We get
Please
it
say that
all
one
day
more
long.
time.
Yeah, so, and that's actually part of our onboarding, and we discussed that during the consultation. But your scores on Credit Karma is not the same as the score that you would get from a lender. It's not the same as a score you would get from the dealership. So depending on what service that you're trying to obtain, that's the score that you're going to get. And we get that all the time. Well, Cassie, what is my real score? Well, it depends on what you're trying to get. So if you're trying to get a credit card, FICO has over 100 different models. So depending on what service you're trying to obtain, that's the score you're going to get. So it's the accurate score for whatever service or product that you're trying to obtain. And so also just reminding people, you only get your mortgage scores from a lender. So each bureau uses their own version of FICO. With Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. So they all use their own version of FICO when it comes to doing a mortgage score. So, but either way, just wanted to make sure that we express to them, let's not focus on the score. Let's focus on the report, because like I said, you can have a 760 and still get denied for a mortgage. And you can have a 760 if you become an authorized user and just kind of hijack your score up. So that's great if you're looking to just have a high score, but we want to make sure that you have an overall healthy credit report and to be able to show that you have substantial credit in your own name. So that's what we primarily focus on, and letting people know, don't just get fixated on the score. You got to look at the report. So that's going to give us the more accurate picture of how you've been utilizing your credit.
Now, you said something there too, because I think back in my day, we used to call that piggybacking.
Yes.
Where your parents might add you to their credit card or something like that just to build their score. Now, did that help, or was that?
Yes, it does help. It does help. However, that cannot be your only trade line. You have to have trade lines in your own name. So piggybacking or becoming an authorized user, it's great as long as, again, the person that's the primary account holder is not overutilizing that card. So you don't want it to become an authorized user on someone who's maxed out their credit card or nearing maxing out their credit card, because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you as much, I'll say that. And then it's going to be where it looks like you're overutilizing your credit. So just becoming educating people about how the authorized user work, how that works, and to never buy a trade line. So I know that's a trend that's on social media and just kind of out there in general of, trade lines for sales. Like, you don't ever buy a trade line. Anyway, just kind of educating them about red flags to watch for. Because everybody wants to get to the finish line like yesterday. Yeah. Nobody wants to. Nobody wants to actually prepare for the race. Everybody just wants to get to the finish line. So basically, just doing it the old school way, teaching them about credit, how it works. It's a process. It's not an overnight process. But I would rather instill you with what you need going forward than just do it for you, and you have no idea of how to maintain it. So that's what we kind of focus on.
Man, I'm telling you, so many people could use your help right now. I'm telling you that I just talking to you, this is one, it's inspirational. It's so informational. I love it. You brought up one more thing, and I know I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're busy.
Oh, you're fine.
You talked about, people don't realize they can pull their credit report for free once a year, right?
Yes.
And that's something you can help them do. Is that correct?
That is correct. So with annual free credit report, you can get your credit report free once a year. And what we do while they're in our program, we do have our clients, everyone enrolls into credit monitoring, because the once a year, that's great for just once a year. Like, you at least need to pull your credit report once a year. But we basically have them to enroll in the credit monitoring so we can see all three reports and all three scores every month to be able to monitor their progress while they're enrolled in our program. So we also, of course, encourage people to do that, because there's other perks that come along with that, with identity theft monitoring, making sure that your information is not appearing on the black web, especially as many breaches that some of these companies have. So just making sure that your information is kept safe and secure. But yes, at least monitor your credit report at least once a year, if not more frequently.
Yeah, I definitely monitor mine. I monitor mine, my wife's, and my kids.
Yes.
Because it's amazing how many alerts we get. Like, when you talk about the black web, so we get those alerts and whatnot, just showing, hey, your email is on here, or your socials on here and stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
so much hacking going on that, I mean, this is just a must if, to maintain your credit.
It
Like,
is.
it's important to do that. So,
It
wow.
is. Definitely. And most people that get targeted for identity fraud or identity theft are children, those that are incarcerated, and elderly. So, those are kind of the more vulnerable audiences that get targeted for identity theft. So definitely monitor, like you said, your kids' credit. I definitely, educate our clients on doing so. You got to start, monitoring your child's credit, especially before they turn 18. But yes, I definitely agree.
Wow. Well, Cassie, how can people reach you? This has been absolutely amazing. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they reach you?
They can just give us a call. So our office number is 423-698-3500, or they can also schedule a consultation with us through our website, which is leadyourfinancials.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you for having me.
I'll be reaching out to you about putting that class together. Okay.
Sure thing. Let's do it.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.